Wow.
So it sounds great on paper, but no one applied and got approved for a permit. Let me rephrase that.
Oh, the approval was only 14
people got approved.
So really, no one's getting approved.
No.
So here's the thing with the building code we come up against. I can't remember if I talked about it on episode 32. The options and opportunities program they offer in Nova Scotia.
No, you did. What's that?
Oh,
That's
so we should, because when you talked about it, I almost called Jason that day and I said, "Hey, this is the exact program we have."
Now, when you use steel tip darts like an adult,
Even steel tip darts, wood paneling will dent the tip of the dart. It'll bend the tip of the dart.
I got
Just
I
put
get
fucking-
I get a sharper.
Just put 3/4 corkboard up around your dartboard.
I may do that too.
Be
do
a
that too.
fuking human.
Be a fucking human.
Why is it electricians only know can't do any carpentry work?
Not all electricians. John's pretty slick.
He was carpenter before though.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, John
okay.
just learned as he went, man.
Yep.
Levels okay in your head? Is it too loud, buddy?
Could be a little bit less.
Could be a little less.
Yeah.
John can turn you down whatever you need.
How's that? Is that a little bit better?
That's better.
Better?
If I start yelling, just tell me.
Oh, it's still fun. It's yell. Fuck yell. Our problem is we're a little quiet sometimes is actually the problem, right?
Yeah, we got the new mic arms. And I had to tell Jason, he fucking speak up,
Oh, yeah,
dude.
I was like a mile away. I was like way back here, so I could see my computer. Like it wasn't doing the jerk at all. But man,
Got to almost make love to these.
yeah, I'm glad that you actually got to see the old ones when we were in Nova Scotia because, man, these are so much better. Like you can move around. It's
Actually see shit.
So much better.
And you ain't got to worry about like fucking hitting the mic stand.
Yeah, we were bumping them all the time. It's like a big loud noise every time. Boom, like every time, right?
Why are electricians the messiest people in the world too? That's my other question.
Well, you can ask us when we start recording here, man. I think it's a false flag event.
It's only some electricians, just the
Yeah.
messy, the dirty ones who just drop everything like
And just don't give a shit.
3 years old.
If you got a fucking electrician like that, you need to fire him and
we've
hire
talked about
somebody
this
else.
before. Yeah. But it's definitely a myth amongst construction for sure. Like
It really
everybody
is. I
gives a
don't
shit all the
fucking know
time.
why.
Like when I clean up something, somebody's like, "Oh my god, a unicorn!" The Phil guy that we're hopefully gonna have on soon.
Right.
That's what Phil says. Like, "Oh, we found a unicorn." He had an apprentice with him. He's like, "Look, an electrician, clean up after himself." I'm like, well, I have no choice. I'm the only one here. I can't tell my apprentice to do it. So I'm on my own now and I have to fuck.
There's-
Actually, Nigel's
that.
dad, who's a retired electrician, he's like the cleanest person I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know how that started because I've never seen us being. I mean, when we're doing our job, yes, we throw everything on the floor and then we clean it up later.
Right.
That's the photos people get though.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, look how messy they are. I'm like, yeah, 10 minutes later when we're finished, we swept up. Maybe.
Right.
Like, probably.
Guy,
No, because I kept wondering where all the brooms were for. And I'm like, finally I was there at the end of the day or whatever, and he's like doing all the cleaning. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'll do the cleaning. You're an electrician guy. You don't clean. He's like,
then don't fucking bitch.
But not everybody has a healthy attitude.
no. So he was like, no, I actually do clean. I was like, great.
That's a fucking beauty. John, welcome, man. Eastside Job Trailer, buddy.
Once and again.
Once again, how was your week, pal?
It's going pretty good. Can't complain.
Some restrictions lifted. The ongoing...
All of them.
All restrictions. The ongoing saga of John's recovery is getting better, folks.
Yes.
He's actually able to do something here.
Yeah, I told the shop November 4th.
November 4th.
November 4th. That's my date I'm coming back to work.
Beauty.
I can't fucking do it anymore.
That'll
It'll be 4
probably
months
be
off.
right around the time this comes out. We do always record a little early, right? So
Yeah. Well, pretty close.
pretty close. Yeah, it'll be pretty close, right? We're getting there. So if you're a recent listener to the podcast, you have to go back as far as episode 32. So first of all, get your
Is it 32?
Get your whole life together if you're not going back that far. Get your whole
fucking
entire
come
life
on.
together. Pause this one, go back, listen to 32, where I was on location in Nova Scotia, back home, visiting some family, and I was lucky enough to sit down with the boys from Tiny Homes Atlantic, Greg, Mackinnon, and pardon me, and Nigel, and we had a good time. So one of the boys, obviously my brother Greg, is with us here in the job trailer today. We would like to welcome back Greg Mackinnon. How are you, buddy?
So excited to be here. This is
Nice.
awesome. I get to see that job trailer. I get to put a face to a name with John.
There you go.
know?
Yes, I forgot because yes, when you do listen to that one, folks, that was me by myself with Greg and Nigel. So that was the first one we did. But it's nice to have you down here, buddy. Welcome.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Oh, that's great. So quick recap for anybody who didn't listen. Greg is my big brother, but he is one of the founding members of Tiny Homes Atlantic. They built tiny homes back in Nova Scotia. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And the obvious father of my niece and nephew, who I love very much. Shout out Haley and Connor. So this is your first trip to the Midwest, big brother.
Absolutely.
What do
First trip to
you
Minnesota.
think so far, man?
It's excellent. But all the lies about the cold, dreary weather that you've been telling me for the last 18 years, they're all false.
You're a little fucking early.
Because, like,
You're a
this is
little early.
Right.
this is warm. Like, you're, it's supposed to be cold, it's supposed to be snowy,
Well, I want
nicer
you
than this Nova Scotia.
I want you to come back in January, and then we'll have another discussion on that right there.
Man, even a month from now
Yeah, a month
should
from
be
now.
significantly colder, right? Like, what are you going to do? So,
Oh God, in a month I gotta take my bike in for storage
yes, I'm not looking forward to that, pal. That is not good.
in the cold ride.
So, what did you think? What were the highlights of the trip so far, big brother?
So a real whirlwind, like barbecue Friday night here, obviously. I think that was Friday. The days kind of bled together.
Yeah, it was Friday, yeah.
It was great. Got to meet all your friends, talked to John for a while, talked to a lot of other people. So kind of exciting to get some of the local flavor, and what people are doing down here. Of course, Golden Gophers versus USC.
Yes, we got to go see. So this we tailgated. Anybody who's checking out the social media would have saw Greg and I at the tailgate. We got to see a historic game. We got to have my first tailgate for the Gophers game. My first Gophers game. That was great. Shouldn't have beat USC, and they did.
They did.
Like, great.
Gave my brother shit for living in Minneapolis and not having season tickets to the Vikings or going to Gophers games all the time. It's like living in Nova Scotia, where the nearest NFL it's probably like 11 hours to see the Patriots in Foxborough.
Right.
Have been to see lots of NFL games. Not my very first college football game, but I've only ever been to see University of Las Vegas Running Rebels. It was homecoming. There was 8,000 people there. Usually there were 1,000. Had to drink Coors Banquet, unfortunately, as they were giving out. But, it was free. But anyway, totally different experience at the Golden Gophers game. 50,000 people saw it. First win in 69 years. The person beside me actually said he was getting Nova Scotia citizenship after they won.
Yeah, he said if they win this game, he's
wow.
going to get Nova Scotia citizenship. Yeah. And they like give my brother a hard time because on one of the plays, a guy was out of bounds.
Yeah.
And of course, my brother had the classic Canadian oat.
Oh,
And the rest of the time, those three guys, every time somebody was, that guy was out, like they were giving him shit. They were really fun, yeah. And I hope he starts to listen because one of the guys we were tailgating beside, Peter, if you happen to check this out, thanks so much for your help of not letting our awning fly into your truck. Tried to give us weights, even though it didn't work. So we had a really nice tailgate experience too. It was pretty good.
And of course, Sunday, the full NFL experience, right from, watching my Jets get destroyed. And but that's okay. They fired Robert Saleh today, so. That hope springs eternal being a Jets fan now their coach is fired. Right. So I'm sure Aaron Rodgers called Woody, the owner after the game and Robert Saleh's got to go when we ran it on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2 and said, let me throw it. It's a whole other story. Yeah, so we watched that game, which is great, over at your friend Jimmy's, right?
Yeah, my brother-in-law Jimmy.
Yeah,
Shout out to
brother-in-law
Jimmy.
Jimmy's.
Yeah, he's going to be on as a guest soon. He's one of the people on our list, crane operator we got. Yeah, that was the Midwest experience. Have Bloody Marys, have a little breakfast grub. It was pretty good.
Oh, there you go.
This is all lost on John because everybody's listened way back at episode 8 where I tried for a whole hour to convince John to listen to sports, and John doesn't watch sports at all.
Yeah, I blank out. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, this is not
It's
his
a great
thing.
conversation. I'm happy that
No.
happy you guys had a good fucking time.
I have heard of other people in the world that don't watch sports. So
Yeah, it's a strange thing to see. So
and don't get me wrong, I'm very seasonal. I didn't really watch hockey that much, even though I'm from Canada anymore, because I just spent 12 years in a row watching my son play 5 times a week. So I'm sort of hockeyed out a little bit. I don't watch baseball anymore. Once the Expos left, and the Blue Jays are kind of shitty these days. So really, it's pretty well just college football season for me. So the rest of the time, I try not to waste my time watching sports either. So I can relate, John.
Right.
There's other things
there
to
you
do.
go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got other shit to do.
Yeah, there's shit to do.
Like wash my hair.
God, you're brutal. You're killing me over here, man. So, Greg, give us an update. What's happening these days at Tiny Homes Atlantic?
So since I can't remember the episode 32, when was that? November, February,
When I was
May?
home for Mom's
Yeah, that's-
birthday.
Yeah, so the latest Tiny's finished. We just actually are moving it next week down to a lot, about an hour and a half out of town. We're going to maybe just rent this one out, actually. So we're going to connect the deck up to it. We're going to stage it a little bit. My business partner and I have probably like a 3-acre lot down on a really big lake down there, kind of in cottage country.
Okay.
So, one of the things we're kind of finding out is people almost need to see it in place before they'll buy it. So, when they see it at our building lot, it just looks like a container at a place, setting up on concrete stands.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Same with the tiny houses on wheels, the same. So the last, tiny house on wheels we actually put down there. We had the deck, put the deck out, overlooking the lake. Someone lived it for a little bit. And then when it came time to sell it and people came to look at it, they can sort of see, oh, this is how it's actually supposed to be. I'm going to put this by, the lake. I'm going to hook it up to the water capture. I'm going to hook it up, the rainwater capture. I'm going to hook it up to the septic. So we're going to do the same thing with this container and put it down there and set it up and let people, then even if somebody wants to come try it out, they can, they come stay for a couple nights, see what it's like.
That's
there you
actually
go.
probably
That's a
a really
great
good idea. Yeah,
You
because
know.
I was going to give you a little grief. I was just writing myself a note so I didn't forget, but I'll say it right now. You guys put up lots of good like shots in production, like cut the odd video when you're building them, but very few finished product ones. I'm like, why don't you put those up there as advertising? Like, this is what it looks like at the end. So it sounds like that's what you're doing.
So like John and I were talking about this earlier, when you're sort of, backyard carpenters or you're just doing stuff for fun on the side, or we call ourselves boutique builders, that's another name for it. You're good at, there's lots of YouTube videos or, you can call someone up and say, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you frame this? How do you put these, do this installation, or you can kind of talk it out yourselves. There's really not a lot about those, about marketing, how to sell something, or maybe there is, I'm just not seeing them.
There is. You just got to do a search better. Get your algorithm fixed.
Yeah, your algorithm is just, your algorithm is what it is, right? Like
So
once you start looking at
I
that.
haven't really found out, how to sell my tiny houses better once they're built, So both of us, we admitted to ourselves, we need to work on this better. So this may be our new way to do it, because especially with containers, I hate driving them 2.5 hours and waiting, not going, dragging them behind the truck,
Right.
Right.
But, containers are easy. The tilt lock truck backs right up to it. They winch it on. They take it to wherever you want. They drop it off wherever you want. So it's easy. And that's about $500, so it's not cost prohibitive.
Nice.
So we may start doing this for all the builds now. We may just start saying, okay, we're building it here, but then when it's done, it's going to the lot. We're setting it up. People can stay in it, see how they like it. We'll rent it out a few nights, do whatever. First person comes along, you want to buy it, it's all yours.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
How do the laws work there? Like if you guys set one up on a permanent property, could you like Airbnb, VRBO that?
Airbnb is getting, I don't know what it's like here, but it's getting really regulated because there's such a shortage of housing.
Okay.
So now, like before, it was basically free to register your property. Now, if it's an urban area, your house can't be empty. So you have to live in one of the rooms. So you can only Airbnb a place in an urban area. Like you can't rent your whole house out, for example.
It's called, what is that called? Hosted rentals or something like that?
So it has to be your primary residence.
Okay. But do you have to be there when it's rented out?
No, but you have to live there a certain amount of the time. Because so many people were just buying up houses and then Airbnb them instead of renting them.
Yep.
Outside the municipality, this is be about 2 hours outside of Halifax. A little bit easier, but still, it's about $3,500 a year to register. And then, then the government keeps a very close eye on what you're doing because they know you're renting out, so they're looking at your bank account and stuff all the time, which makes it a lot less profitable for someone just renting out their cottage for a couple weekends a year. Then it's sort of a true business. So.
No, that's not so bad then.
I'm going to fix something.
Yeah. John's going to make an adjustment to the audio here. Greg's mic's in a little weird spot. Well, that's good. So you had a chance while you were here. We were at the hardware store at some other places. Like, what do you see as far as building material costs? Like, does it seem pretty close now?
So I was really surprised with everything because usually one of my favorite things about going to the grocery store, the liquor store, to an Ace Hardware, a Lowe's, right?
Yep.
Lowe's,
We have Lowe's here.
And
Yeah.
I had never been to a Menards before.
Right.
So first of all, the store is like 4 times bigger than it is in Halifax.
Right, yeah,
You
they're
have
all
4
huge
times
here.
population. That
Yeah,
makes
they're all
sense.
huge. And there's
Same
another
thing,
one 2 exits down the highway.
And I know things have been going up here too, but this was the first trip where after you do the conversion with the dollar, I didn't really notice much difference in building materials. So people really must be feeling the pinch about prices being more here. Because usually I come down here, I'm like, God, things are free. But now I'm like, hey, if I convert that, that's the exact same price. I looked at saws the other day, like Menards for a minute, and I'm like, just a couple things I know exactly what the price is because I buy them quite often. I'm like, that Milwaukee, impact gun drill at 35%. That's the same as it is at home. So I noticed a big difference this time about the prices being equal.
Yeah, when I was home with you in May, we took a couple trips out to grab some things. We were at the Home Depot up there. I noticed that consumables were cheaper in Canada. So like saw blades, nails, screws. I did notice that stuff was significantly like 10% cheaper.
So I wonder that too. I wonder if we're getting a lot of that stuff maybe from China, Korea, that maybe people in the States aren't getting, and maybe that's why some things are a little bit cheaper.
I was wondering if you were getting it right off the docks there because the
you have
container
no
ships
shipping
were coming
costs.
in. The shipping costs
No,
might be less.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're like equilateral distance kind of to any real ocean from here.
We're 2 weeks from everywhere.
From everywhere, right? So yeah, I think that's a part of it is you can just you can take that cost off of delivery of materials and stuff. So yeah, consumables I noticed were significantly cheaper there.
So I was hearing some crazy shit up there about, and this is cost of living, not construction, but food costs in Canada are fucking outrageous.
It's astronomical.
That's crazy.
Like it's literally the price of food's probably gone up like I want to say 70, 80, 90% like in the last couple of years. Like some things are just ridiculous.
There was a gal's video that I saw. There was a package of chicken was like over $100. Like what the fuck
I think
for?
some of those were a little staged, where they had like a
I would
different
hope they
sticker or
printed
something,
a
right?
different label,
Yeah,
but it
I
was.
think some of it was that.
It was a label.
So here's some real simple things that I noticed. For example, you have Costco's here too, right?
Yep,
sure.
So Costco's kind of a good way to sort of because they're not trying to gouge you. They're actually trying to sell you stuff for kind of what they're getting at and make their profit margin. I think.
Right.
Maybe,
We'd
maybe
like
not.
to believe,
As
right?
long
We
as
like
you
to
buy
believe-
80 of something.
Right.
Right, but they're not just okay. We got this deal on this week, so we're gonna, Pat used to buy a package of chicken salad there. Used to be like $8.99. Now it's like $21. And that was like 2 years ago.
For a chicken salad.
Yeah, just a little thing of chicken salad. Butter, another big staple. Like a pound of butter. Same as here. 454 grams for us, pound for you guys.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
That would have been $3.99 sort of everywhere's. Now that's $8, $9.
Yeah, Jesus
I
Christ.
actually bought some pounds of butter the other day at like a discount shop. They were on sale for $5. I never do that. I actually bought 8 pounds to take home and put in the freezer. Like that's kind of where people are back to. Bacon would be another staple.
Yeah.
Pound of bacon always used to be maybe like $4, $4.50. Now that's 10, 11.
Right.
And then and those things of steak especially has gone just completely out of sight. So a thing of 3 strip loins at Costco was probably about $24. Now that's like $65, $70.
Wow.
So things that
Jesus,
it's
fuck
really
me.
Yeah.
really
Oh.
gone up. Like and
Kick me in the
produce
dick.
and now here's the other thing too. Because we know we're getting all our produce from California or Mexico. Like even apples, I noticed that we get from out of Canada when things aren't in season because we only have the one growing season.
Right.
In California they have 4. We get 1.
Right.
So you can get local stuff for about 1 month of the year. Like September. Anyway, produce. Not only is it like super more expensive, but it's real terrible quality and it lasts no time at all.
Really?
So you get a bag of apples, 2 days later it's rotten. You get a thing oranges taste like cardboard. You get a thing of lettuce, a couple days later it's brown.
Holy
So that's
shit.
another thing I noticed too. Just things don't last. So
Right.
so I was just reading the paper yesterday. So they said 80% of people in Canada are going to start looking for a new job unless their employer offers them more money. Because I'm sure it's the same as here. Prices just keep going up, but no one's really offering any more in salaries.
Oh yeah, they always like to talk about inflation and inflation's 3%. Bitch, please, from 2020 to 2024, it's raised 28%.
Yeah.
Your standard cost.
Yeah. Without
fuck
without
you.
changing jobs, how many fucking people are getting a 28% bump in their job? Like nobody.
They say on average it takes about $11,000 more dollars a year to live now than it did in 2020.
Absolutely.
11 grand. Who in the fuck is getting that kind of pay raise?
Right.
And that's, we're paying more taxes too, but that's like getting a $25,000 raise to make $11,000.
Right.
Not
Right.
getting $11,000 raise.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So even if you were making 75, like why are they bumping you up to 100? Like what are you doing now that's any different? That's gonna be tough for companies to justify that bill.
Yeah, it will. And I think we're seeing the same thing down here too, though. Like everybody's job hopping and it's become almost an epidemic where they job hop, every year or so for an extra buck. But people have to do that now. Like there's no choice. We're fortunate being in the union. Our contract raises were actually pretty
We
substantial.
negotiated, so they're healthy, right?
They're decent,
I'd
but-
always let them pay me more if they wanted. I'd be fine with it.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we have very few complaints with that. Like we're lucky in that way, and lucky in the way that being a union member, you're voting with all the people that are in your local, but it's also sort of regulated-ish. So we get decisions on how we want that $2, $2.50, whatever it is, raised that
Right.
year, allocated, where it goes. Like it's actually a pretty good setup.
right.
So, and as always, we're here for union and non, but there's definitely benefits to the union, folks. Look into it.
But when the union wages go up, so do the non-union wages because they have to stay competitive.
They have to, right? For sure.
Like,
Yeah, I like it, man. Did you do you find, Greg, that there's a lot of tire kickers? I know we talked about this briefly in your episode. Are you still getting a lot of people who want a lot of real detailed stuff with the tiny homes where you're just like, no, we make it this one way? Is there a lot of that still going on?
Not as much as before. I don't know if we just discourage that now, but a lot of people come look at it first just to see it.
Well, that's my question. Are you
Yeah.
actively kind of discouraging that?
Yeah, we're kind of discouraging that. One of the things that I was telling Jason about earlier too, John, is because there's a shortage in Nova Scotia housing, the government will offer you a $40,000 rebate on a carriage house or an in-law suite in the back or something like that. So a lot of people have come looking, for that, because if we sell to them for $90,000, well, they get $40,000 right back from the government.
That's pretty good.
But the rules with dealing with municipalities and building permits and stuff like that, it makes it almost impossible to get that money. So that's a real hassle for most people,
I think that's a lot of places where you can get rebates. Like I know one of the PMs in my shop, we do a lot of solar, and him negotiating and figuring out all the right paperwork and schedules and things to make sure that businesses get all their rebates back if they go LED light retro, if they get a solar on the roof and they're paying back in. He spoke to me before, and he's like, that's the biggest hassle with all this. Well, other than, as we've talked before, getting the material you actually need to build it.
Right. And the red tape that follows.
Oh, listen, I was in at the local supply house recently. I was listening to the guy talk. He was looking on his computer for something. The guy was ordering on the phone. He's like, what do you mean we don't have any 4-inch PVC or 4-inch like rigid pipe? And I went, oh, it's solar season, man. He just looked up and laughed like, oh yeah, that's right. It's solar season right now. Like everybody's taking everything. So
yeah, exactly.
I know what it's like here for like bidding on jobs too, but that was a real issue of, just making so much extra money off the government for change orders. Mm-hmm. Right. So, you would bid, we need a new hospital, for example, so the three of the big companies would, bid on it, and the hospital is supposed to cost like $450 million, but really it costs like, $1.8 million. Like it opened like 5 years later.
Right.
So, so the government's really changed the way they do bidding now. Now, basically, you have to, put in your bid, and that's it. There's no change orders, no anything. If you don't have it ready that day, it's like $100,000 a day every day. It's not ready. They've really clamped down on that.
Yep.
But I think part of the thing, there's a lot of rebates on everything now. So I think that's the government's way of saying, well, you can't, change order us. You can't do this. You can't do this. You get it done in place. Here's your money. So private companies or people like us will have to, build in-law suites, put them in, do that sort of stuff, as opposed to them building government housing.
Yep.
And having to deal with contractors and, everything else and the prices and the land and all that. So that's just their way of saying, well, hey, no, we have $10 million or $40 million to donate towards people who need an extra house. Instead of using that to build 10 units or 20 units, we can get people to build their own units, give them money, maybe get 300 units out of that.
Yeah, cheaper rebate.
That's so smart in a way.
I wonder how the businesses, so your example of the hospital, I mean, there's going to be changes. I wonder how they handle it. There must be some sort of way they can get paid, because if the bid is the bid, then every time they try to change something, the contractors would have no choice but to look at them and go, no, we're building it exactly to the way it is. And if the engineering is fucked, you're fucked.
Yep, that's exactly how that's going to be handled. That's the only way. You're going to be like, no, sorry, that room stays exactly how it is. Because all those plans are approved ahead of time.
Right.
They're zoned ahead of time. They're checked ahead of time. There's 10 people that have had the hands on the prints looking at it before it even breaks ground. So yeah, I would actually really like that on a job. Just be like, no.
Right. But I mean, like, look how many times a piece of equipment gets added after the fact, or it's not the equipment they said originally. So now you're adjusting things. Like, you still have to adjust something to make it work. This pipe run can't go down this hallway now because that HVAC is bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Then what's going to happen is you're going to have the project's going to stop in that area. They're going to have to pump it out for bid again. That's going to be a separate deal. Possibly a separate contractor wins that bid. They come in and do the project. That's the only way that works.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
It sounds like a
for
nightmare.
Sure.
So do you think that that's working with them doing that to add extra housing? Like, are people taking advantage? You said it was difficult to negotiate the paperwork and things, but
it's great because it's such a political announcement. Like, we're going to spend X amount of dollars, but all of last year, like 14 people applied for a permit.
Wow.
So it sounds great on paper, but no one applied and got approved for a permit. Let me rephrase that.
Oh, the approval was only 14
people got approved.
So really, no one's getting approved. No. So here's the thing with the building code we come up against. In order to, for it to be a bedroom, even if it's in a tiny house, you have to have the right proper egress window.
Yep.
But if your egress window is so close to the property line, it's a fire rule, that you can't have the window close to the property line, or kind of a privacy rule of not, your window looking over into the next person's property. So in order to make it code, you have to board up that window. So yes, you can put it there, bedroom. But now it's not a bedroom. So it's like catch-22. So I'm dealing with the building inspector saying, but now it's not a bedroom. So now we're selling a place that doesn't have a bedroom. It's like, well, yeah, you're right. So basically, after we dealt with the building inspector on this latest one, so we'd had this one sold to a family in Spryfield, he first of all was engineer drawings, and he wanted another $5,000 of architect's drawings. We were just just wait a minute. No. Are we ever getting this approved? He basically said, no, you're never. I'm like, all right, we're not going to spend the money.
Let's not do
Yeah,
that.
we're going to put it down this other lot, and then someone's going to come along and see it, in a place where you don't have to worry about, being next to your neighbor, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. There's always those weird things that are going to happen when it comes to building codes, especially because how often, John, do we run across where the two things we're told we have to do conflict with one another?
Absolutely.
I mean, it happens to be constantly.
Yeah.
Where you'll ask the question of, say, management, and then you'll ask the question of the builder, and then they'll have two totally different things, and you look at it and go, okay, well, the inspector's coming in. He's not going to let either of those things fly, so what do you want to do here?
Right.
Like so many times I've thrown my hands in the air and go, you got to figure this out. I'm just here to do the work.
I'm going to tell you what the inspector says, and then y'all can figure it out.
All right. Yeah, because I can tell you right now, the inspector is probably not going to bend too much. Once in a while, they're cool.
Every now and then.
Right. But they have to follow the rules, and I totally get that. Same thing with all the building contracts, all the municipal codes. Like, that's fucked.
So, yeah, speaking of building codes or whatever, that's, for the boutique builder or the person that, is building, like a new hunting cabin like I am, these days. That's a big
It's a fucking house. We'll get to that.
It's a house right now.
Yeah, we're getting to that, buddy.
I have to get to that part.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I have a good story with the building inspector with that one too. Anyway, so like I will read the National Building Code, but then there's all these amendments. So there is a Canada National Building Code. I downloaded the 800-page PDF. So you can actually go and I'll look and I'll be like, okay, floor joists have to be this and beams have to be this and et cetera, et cetera. But then I'll get to like something else. So that's a real issue for me because I submitted all the drawings to the municipality in Cumberland, which is like a couple hours out of Halifax. And they said yes to everything. But then they will come back for an inspection and say, no, that's not the code. And I'm like, but it says on my drawings that it is. Like, why didn't you tell me, 2 months ago when I submitted the drawings? So, for example, I'm putting the floor in. It has to have R32. All my drawings said R24, which I thought was fine. And then she comes along. She's like, no, this all has to be R31. I'm like, oh, does that mean I'm pulling all the floor up now? Like,
Right.
what am I doing?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they're actually kind of nice. She's actually just make sure that you leave one piece of OSP in the corner not nailed down, so I can look at it.
Right. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
hopefully you're not listening.
Yeah, that area is definitely the code.
That area is definitely the code. The rest of it may be R28, but that is definitely the code.
Oh, God.
So that's a little frustrating for me because I was depending on them, to give me the okay on things because I really, wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, I would look up and say, I need to have a, smoke detector in every room or 2 meters outside of every room. Sorry for the metric.
We're fine with it here, buddy. Go ahead.
This much, I have to have this HVAC system. I have to have this, I have to have 36-inch door. So I'm depending on them when I submitted all that to say yes. So I am kind of waiting to die on a better hill because I can fix the insulation one pretty easily.
Right.
Yep.
But when it comes to something I can't fix, I'm going to be like, look, you said this was okay, right? How can you say it's not okay now?
Yeah, and major
Right.
changes like that. I mean, it's not a major change, but a significant change. That's a much bigger deal to a smaller boutique builder like you guys.
Right.
It's not a
Right.
major contractor who's got a bunch of money that goes, okay, well, we just have to fix it. Like, that's a big percentage out of what you're looking to get out of these. So that
And I
makes
can't
sense.
blame anyone. This is my fault.
Right. Right.
I'm like, I can't fire anyone. Like, how come you didn't know what the building code was? I'm firing you. I'm like, no, sorry,
Right, yeah, arguing with yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I want to back up a hot minute. So when you're talking about they're giving out money for in-law suites and whatever, that's kind of right up your guys' alley with your tiny homes, right? You can
Absolutely.
actually build these, turn them into in-law suites, and then put them on somebody's lot as an in-law suite.
Yeah.
But one question I have there is, even though that's kind of right up your guys' alley, how is it to be able to rezone a lot up there? Because then it's dual family. Then it's a multifamily zone dwelling. Like, how do you guys have to jump through that hoop?
Don't have to jump to that hoop. They just changed it for the whole municipality. So every one that was single family before can have that carriage suite in the back.
Really?
Yeah. They are. So in some ways, they are trying to make it easier.
Hey, US, let's get on fucking board with that. Jesus Christ.
And there was another caveat too. In-law suite, your kids could live there, or if you wanted to rent it to someone at 80% of market value instead of 100 for 5 years, they would let you do that too. So that's another thing you can also do.
And they're just
So there are a couple of like smaller, a little bit bigger than us boutique builders just starting to build not tiny homes they move in, but actually building them in place. They're doing the odd one now.
Oh, sure.
and the whole thing is just to help with the housing shortage.
Yeah, help with the housing shortage.
Because here they do a totally different thing. They buy some old farmer's field out who just died, who's had a family farm for like 300 years, and then they just put up $450,000, $500,000 homes right next to each other, and they do like 300 of them, and then they just do another subdivision next to that and next to that. Like,
Right.
Yeah, which isn't solving it.
Yeah, you get the fourplexes and then
Right.
townhouse.
And I wonder if you'll change. I mean, you also have a lot of land here in the U.S. too, not quite as much as Canada, but pretty close. Now a lot more people.
Certainly.
But multi-generational homes in the rest of the world are very common, just not so common in North America.
Right.
Right.
You know, where, you know, there's no expectation your kids ever living anywhere else. They're going to live somewheres, you know, in your house or close to it in another house you build, you know, in the lot beside you or whatever, you know, to look after you when you get old, and
Right.
you look after the grandkids for them, you know, before you die.
I suspect we're going to see it starting to go that way more and more here.
Oh, for sure.
They have
for
to.
sure. If the housing prices don't come down, like, because I have kids that are becoming adults, right?
Me too.
Yeah,
and
great too.
they can't fucking afford a house to save their goddamn soul. They can hardly afford an apartment. I mean, a single bedroom apartment anymore averages $1,200 a month.
The last few like people and apprentices I talked to who are looking to rent, where all of them were renting with multiple people. They couldn't do it on their own.
They have to have roommates.
Yeah, they were all spending $25 to $50 to $100 just for the application, and that might not mean they get it.
Yep.
And they were more than my mortgage in a lot of cases for a couple of bedroom apartment.
Yep.
More than my mortgage. I'm like, how can they ever afford long term to buy a house?
That's my daughter. My daughter's the average in Halifax right now is $2,000 for a one bedroom. My daughter's only paying $1,500 for her one bedroom, but that's more than my mortgage payment a month.
Yeah,
so I'm paying more for my daughter's, you know, apartment than I am for my, you know, 5,400 square foot house.
Right.
Right.
And is she still in the same place she was when I was there?
Yeah, Queen and Morris. Yeah,
Okay,
same
yeah, so
place.
folks, a very comfortable little studio-ish apartment, but it's, I mean, not studio, it's got a bedroom, but I mean, he's not talking about a gigantic apartment by any means, folks.
Probably a 700 square foot apartment, if that.
That's generous, I think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Is that about right?
about right. Probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see it. That's
Maybe a little smaller.
That's
maybe
fucking
around
insane.
maybe around 550, 600.
yeah, still that's
fucking insane.
That's a lot for that, yeah. But it is like it's a nice building.
$4 a square foot.
Yeah, it's a nice area. Like it does her what she needs, but yeah, the cost of stuff is outrageous. so.
And when has the cost of houses ever gone down?
And
So I try to tell everybody that, like,
Facts.
oh no, rates will come
Facts.
down, the houses will really come down, all that stuff. I'm
No.
just like, you read something from like, you know, 0 BC to now, the price of homes has never gone down.
Right.
It's just not happening. That's just not one of the things that goes back.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I didn't think about
You
it
know,
like that.
sales may slow down a little bit. Sale prices may get a little bit lower, you know, and nobody's buying, but really the actual intrinsic value of what your house is really just going to keep, you know, going up and up and up.
right. It'll get stagnant, but it won't drop. That's the problem.
Right.
And so the housing market has to, the income market has to catch up to the housing market, and good luck with fucking that.
Opposite waves, right? Opposite waves. Like
Does interest rates impact, do you like the amount of work that, you know, 'cause you two
Yes.
are both commercial,
certainly
right?
do.
Yes.
Yes, certainly
Yeah,
they
because
do.
people aren't borrowing money to build more apartment buildings or office buildings or, you know, that sort of stuff. It's a big impact in Canada on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a high rise, that's, you know, we'll just throw a number out there, say $14 million, right? And you got a bunch of investors. Well, then their loan rate jumps by 1% on 14 million is a lot of fucking money. They ain't going to spend the money as investors.
And
I
if-
wouldn't.
and
I'd
if-
be like,
right.
yeah,
and
I'm
if they
going to
haven't
wait.
broke ground, they'll take the loss on all the paperwork and architectural and ready, like civil engineering they did in advance,
And they'll put it on pause.
They'll just go, pump the brakes. We'll think about it for a year.
So I have a question. Maybe other people don't ask, you know, not being, you know, as being a teacher my whole life or whatever. So companies never go into business. How do, you know, trade people in the trades deal with the bust boom cycle, or, you know, there's lots of work now, but no work for the next 6 months, or
Well, it happened to us in 08 with the crash, right? And so I noticed over here in the bigger metropolitan area, guys fucking skated. They started traveling for work. They found work somewhere else. I was fortunate. I was living in South Dakota at the time. I never felt that recession, ever. I worked every day. And it's because they don't spend money over there like they do here.
right.
People over here spend it like, you know, they got the fucking money tree in the backyard.
Right. But the general answer is if you're going to be a tradesperson, that's the cost of doing business. You
accept that.
Yeah, you understand getting in. There's going to be thin times. And when thin times happen, you need to decide, okay, am I going to work less and stay at the company I'm at? I'm going to drag up. Am I going to go somewhere else? Am I going to travel? You just figure out what it is best for you in the situation. And you never know how long those things are going to last.
And your certification is good in all the states. You can travel
No.
around. Well, it's not.
No,
Oh, that's
but
a whole other story. Okay.
Right.
They have we know the states that have like a reciprocation where you can go and go into the local, fill out your paperwork. I'm sure the same thing happens with non-union people where they can go with another company, but it's not everywhere.
No, and it's a select few states that reciprocate licenses. Minnesota is South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa. I believe. And
Iowa,
that's it.
Iowa, yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
And that's it. And then Wyoming, and then South Dakota reciprocates with Minnesota, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. And then it's these chunks, right? So I can go and file $40 worth of paperwork, send a $40 check to South Dakota and get my South Dakota license if I need to.
Right.
But it's just...
Now, if you move to another state and you're not qualified, does that mean you're just back down one level and you're like a year 3 apprentice and you do so many hours and you write your test there again? Or how does it work?
If you're already a JDub, a lot of times you can write the test, or you get screwed like John did and you have to go back to apprenticeship school.
Yep. When I first got in the union, I had to take a step back. I had verified enough hours when I moved over here, but I knew that there was no way I'm passing that fucking exam. None. Because you forget 3/4 of it when you're done. Right.
Exactly.
So the unions are like, no, you need to, they were going to let me come back as a 5th year. And they're like, well, 5th year's all code. You're going to struggle bus. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'll take 4th year. I'll refresh on my motors and PLCs and shit. And then, but
yeah, and
it was a good choice.
The biggest part of that too is when you go and travel like that, Greg, if you're in another state, you're on what they call the traveler's book.
If you're union.
Yeah, if you're union, yeah. When layoffs come up, they got to clear that book first. Locals obviously take priority. You're on book 1, they call it sometimes. If I'm signed up to book 2, when they start laying people off, all the book 2 guys and gals got to go first.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, like if you two had worked your whole lives and someone like me rolls in and then, all of a sudden you have to hit the streets because I'm here from Halifax doing electrical work. How does that make any sense?
Yeah, but that's one of the extra factors of when times do get slow and you got to travel. There's also that extra worry that I'm the first expendable body breathing here. It just is what it is. So I've been fortunate, John. I know you've been fortunate too, like for the most part. But that affects a lot of people. It weighs on a lot of people when they got it. I mean, we just recently talked about dragging up.
Yep.
And it's a big. It's not a problem, but it's just the factors you got to live with. Like.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We come to grips with it.
I know in one of your episodes you talked about the shortage of tradespeople and programs in schools, and that's still a thing? Or?
Oh, yeah.
It's still a thing. Now, I will say...
It gets worse and worse every year.
Right, yeah. Shout out to the guys at Central High School here. I was doing some work there recently. They have a drafting and carpentry program for the kids there.
Yep.
Using tool... They were building sheds. They were building like 5x8 sheds. I mean, they were way overpriced to buy. When I looked at it from them, like $1,100. You crazy? But at least we did see a school doing that. But
my town has it.
Yeah.
Where I live.
I can't remember if I talked about it on episode 32. The Options and Opportunities program they offer in Nova Scotia.
No, we didn't. What's that?
Because when you talked about it, I almost called Jason that day and I said, hey, this is the exact program we have. So in Nova Scotia, in grade 10, it's 12 grades, same as I think here. Mm-hmm. In grade 10, you can go into the Options and Opportunities program, specifically target at students who want to go into the trades, so any Red Seal trade. If you agree to go in the program and you finish all the requirements, which are like 3 co-op work placements, getting your WIMIS training and a few other things done, you get a guaranteed spot in whatever program at community college you want, regardless of how much of a wait time there is.
Really?
Because for some, like electrical is always about a 3-year wait. Carpentry's, probably about a year wait, and some of the other more specialized ones, could be 2 or 3 years. But you do all the requirements, you're automatically in, because the community college in Nova Scotia, it's first person to apply. So if I have a 95 average and you have a 50 average, you meet the requirements and you apply a day before I get it. You get in. I don't.
Oh wow!
So they just make like you meet the requirements, you're in. So now they've actually even backed that up a little bit. So now you can actually get apprenticeship hours in like grade 11 and grade 12 that count towards your Red Seal. So you're already you'll start as like a year 2 apprentice almost when you start. Because here's what people figure out: there's so much of a shortage of trades there. People figured out, well, instead of going to community college and spending 2 years to go for electrical and spending all that money, I can go start working for the electrical company today. They can start paying me. I do my, do my 10 months or whatever of working, and then all the companies down there top up your unemployment insurance while you're going back to school for the 8 weeks.
Nice.
So there's no incentive for you to even go to school anymore. So now what people are doing, they're going out to local plumbing companies, electrical companies right away and saying, hey, I'm interested in being an electrician, but I don't want to go to school. Can I start working here today? And they're like, sure. Bring you aboard. They put you right with a journeyman. And so the government figured that out. Yep. So like, okay, so for the people that want to do that, to make it easier on those companies, we're going to even back it up a little bit and try to get those kids in grade 11 and 12, so, some hours specifically in that sort of trade. So when you get them like that and they come in, they're like, well, actually, I've already had, I've already had a co-op placement or two at an electrician company, and I've already have some theory. I'm not just coming in knowing nothing.
Yep.
So there's a lot of and here's the other thing too, which hasn't really been an incentive. Red Seal or any kind of any trade that is eligible for a Red Seal, you don't pay any provincial income tax until you're 30.
What is a red seal?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I should point that out. That's what they call it in Canada when you turn out. When you become a J-Dub, you get your red seal. So when he says that, that's your license. That's your J-Dub license. So, for everybody not from Canada.
Seal,
I wrote it down to bring it up when he was finished saying, when you turn out and get your license, they call that your red seal.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking amazing.
So here's an example. One of my good friends down there, his son is a heavy-duty mechanic. He's year 2. He makes about $30 an hour, I'd say. But, his paycheck every 2 weeks, because his dad couldn't figure it out, his paycheck every 2 weeks take home was like $1,700, which is pretty good money for, a young kid. You're
Definitely.
like 21 years old. Like, my wife makes $2,000 a month, making $100,000 taxes in Canada.
Right.
It's a whole other thing. Like,
Tax is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he couldn't figure it out. I said, well, that's because he's not paying any income tax. Provincial income tax, still paying federal. But so, he makes an extra, 21% of his pay or something. So that's a big thing for, a young person starting out till they're 30. Kind of, paying these student debt bills
Until
ahead.
they're 30.
Get themselves a car, just taking that extra money and sort of get ahead a little bit. So there's another incentive for people to be in the trades too.
Holy shit.
They got to figure it out in a lot of cases.
Which is something you can actually take to your local politician and say, hey, this is something they're doing in other parts of the world, or, they're doing this program where, someone gets a guaranteed seat at community college. Like, we want people to go there anyway.
Well, and see, that was the deal. I've always been a proponent of you don't need to go to school to be a tradesperson. School and college, community college is a waste of time.
Right.
In my book. You don't need the debt. You learn more on the job site than you ever will out of a book.
Yeah.
And we have made, and I don't know if Canada has the same problem, but for a generation, and I say for me, growing up, I was told that the best job that I'll ever be able to be is a tradesperson. That's the best thing that I'll ever be able to. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. As I grew up and do what I do, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that, because the people that went to school are still paying off their student loans.
Right, but that's a unique situation for you, and I mean, there's still a lot of families like that. But you're also in a whole generation where they told people
the college was the only way to get a decent paying job.
Yeah,
and they told me that college wasn't going to work for me. The best I could do, air quotes, was be it. Fuck you.
Well, we talked before. That's the good old days where you went to the school counselor and they're like, "Hey, you can be one of these 6 things that require tool belts."
Right.
They said that was a negative for years to students, and it's not.
Right, and that's what we've been battling down here, is that whole generation gap when the trades were looked down on. And it's just like,
so that's really changing now. I mean,
it's changing here too.
30, 40 years ago, exactly the same, 30, 20 years ago even, but not anymore. Now, I had that same conversation with both my kids. Hey, both of you want to go to community college and take a trade? Save me a ton of money, make just as much money or probably more.
Right.
Great. No problem. Like, that's you can totally do that. Like, I'm not saying you have to go to college, you have to go to university or whatever.
Right.
I said you'll be out working sooner, you won't have any debt, and you'll be the person driving the truck and driving your boat around and having 50 people working for you and not even doing anything when you're like my age.
Right.
So if you want to do that, that's just fine.
Right.
Because if you are like a smarter, driven kind of person, you can get a good job in the trades and you can make $1.
Oh yeah,
like a lot.
All you need to do is really have a pulse and show up on time and not drunk.
Yeah.
Spell your fucking
show up
name.
sober and regularly. We'll put you to work. Like, we can make that happen. Yeah, it's easy down here. I am happy to hear that you say that, Greg, because I hear it sporadically now out of some parents, like the new generation of parents, where they're like, "Oh, $300,000 in debt to go to college for something that you're paying off forever, or none of that debt and you're making money right away." Like, it's a no-brainer now, when it was stigmatized for so long. So I know we've spoken about it before, but I'm glad to hear that at least your generation of parents are
and
thinking.
the province does a really good job too where I live. The employment rate of being employed in the field that you go to community college to in Nova Scotia is like 95%. So if you go to community college, take program X, you're going to get a job and you're going to make money doing it.
Right.
Oh,
so
that's way better than down here.
So what a lot of people do is a huge percentage of people, like 30% and over 30% of people now who are going to community college already have a university degree.
Yeah.
They either do the university degree and then they realize What am I going to do with this? And then they'll go back and do a trade.
Right.
You know.
Well, and it was funny because when I was in the process of going to school, because I started college to be an electrician, I didn't finish, but I found out that the placement, right? We got a 90% placement. Yeah, if somebody graduates as an electrician and they get a job changing light bulbs at a grocery store, not doing anything but changing light bulbs, that's still placement in an electrical field.
I had that exact problem with
really.
my community college I went to. They had the little plaques up inside that said, yeah, we proudly tout our 96 point whatever percent placement in the field, and then found out it was exactly what you said. Like, well, they got a job.
Yeah.
You could have been raking leaves, and they counted it.
Yep.
And then lying to people to get people to come to their school to pay that. Like, fuck off. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, that's brutal. I don't like that they can do that. Yep. For sure.
One problem I did notice, I don't know if that happened down here too, and we had a lot of people when work did get slow and people moved away. Alberta was the big place in Canada everybody moved to. That's where all the work was, with the oil sands and just the big boom, printing money out there. The quality of work that got done back home in Nova Scotia went down dramatically.
Sure it did.
Took a huge dive.
It took a huge hit. No one knew how to tile anymore. No one knew how to bend pipe. No one that was an issue for a lot of years too.
Yeah, I knew some electricians and welders who went out there.
You could almost see, they did a lot of work on different schools I was at. How this was built before. This was built, recently. And people, I remember I used to take quarters and put them along the edge of the tile because that's the test for whether tile jobs are good. The quarter's not supposed to catch on the tiles, right?
Well, fair enough.
And
Just little things like that. One tile floor would be like this, like this quarter of an inch, 3/4 of it, like the three, and otherwise it'd be perfectly flat. Excellent. I'd be like, oh, real contractors did that one.
Professionals,
Right.
yeah. I can see that because obviously those places where you got to travel out west, because I knew some plumbers and electricians who went out there, and yeah, they're taking the best ones, leaving all the sucky ones who couldn't get a job or didn't want to put the effort in back home. I never thought about that, buddy. That's a good point. Right. And Greg has been good so far here. I just want to point out something real quick before we get too far. By the time you hear this, we have already had our 1-year anniversary special. We did shout out Tiny Homes, and we did point out something that ongoing. I didn't discuss this too much with you, but I may have quickly mentioned it. I have in the past, and when I do get facts and figures wrong, I go back on later episodes and I have a retractment and correct myself. Greg is now our official Canadian foreign correspondent fact checker for when I get something completely wrong. You'll hear it an episode or two later where he'll just be like, call me up or he'll DM me or message me and let me know like, hey man, you're totally wrong about that. He's now our fact checker for Canada. So
I do laugh. Great. I do laugh listening to the episodes because there's way more moose than deer. Even my son was like, "Dad, no, there isn't." I'm like, "No, that's completely untrue." Right. And I'm like texting, "Wait, it's recorded. It's not live. It's too late. I gotta stop."
Again, I don't mind retractions. I did specifically retract that exact thing on the anniversary episode. Yeah. So anytime I mess something up, just let me know, man. I'm not proud.
And here's the great thing is we have the ability for you to get on a phone call and bust his chops and have it recorded.
Yeah, that is true.
And I'll tell you what, man. Right. We will let you know. I'll just send you a text message when we're recording dates. And if you're there, you can call us. We can call you. Yeah, we can get right live on the air and go, hey, man, you completely fucked this up. Like, I'm not proud at all. Correct me when I'm wrong. I'm fine with it. Like, yeah.
I thought I was like listening to Donald Trump. There was just so many things. I was like,
oh, right.
Oh, ouch.
Also, can we
making up all this stuff about Canada?
Right. Can we also admit we're just talking shit here a lot of the time? This is not a scientific program, folks.
Oh, God, no.
We look up facts and figures, but it's the internet. It's whatever we find. Like, it's okay.
Actually, that's the one thing I have to give you props for. I do like when, we researched this week, so at least people know that you're making the effort.
Oh, right.
And both of you, that on the different things. I looked at this website, the one on tools, I really enjoyed.
We got a lot of positive feedback.
A lot of feedback, a lot of good facts and figures about that one. I wasn't sure about the electric cars one. Like if what the data is on that one, because some people were very, happy about electric cars and some people weren't at first.
Here's the thing. We've talked about it so many times, so we're going to reiterate it once more here. The three of us could look up information on the exact same subject on the internet and find 3 completely different sets of facts depending on where you found them.
Yep.
That's the issue.
Yep. My computer knows that I don't like EVs. So it's going to give me all of that stuff.
That algorithm is already built in.
Yeah. If it thinks I'm negative against something,
and I'm sure you know that here in the States too, but everything on the internet is not true.
Absolutely, yes.
Just in case people haven't. In Canada, we do know that. Like that's.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you.
We do try to find pretty
reputable
reputable sources. I mean, we don't go off of Wikipedia, for the love of fucking God.
Yeah, no, it's not just random.
No, and,
stuff,
and there are some excellent, excellent sources about stuff. There are.
Yeah,
Like,
we
it is good
we
to-
can usually tell if it's a fairly reputable source, but
Yeah.
then even sometimes the information you get is just BS. And
Right.
the algorithm now, especially since the phones are listening, every time I think they're really not listening that much. Prime example: I'm on Instagram before you got here today, just scrolling through, just doom scrolling, wasting time, and all of a sudden I'm getting a bunch of highlights of like college football and stuff because my brother and I have been watching and listening and talking about college football, and now both my algorithms are completely changed. I'm like, everything is a football feed. I'm like, fucking come on, like,
Yep. You went to the game. You
yeah,
did all
they're
that.
giving you
Yeah.
what they want, right? So it's tough sometimes.
And I don't know if it's because Minnesota's cold, so EVs haven't caught on as much here either. Because they're definitely, no matter what they say, they still have developed that battery technology that works better, when it's cold.
There's a lot here.
eventually.
Well,
but I never, I haven't. I saw one Tesla since I've been here. See a ton back home. I was saying this today. An incredible less diversity in cars here than in Halifax.
Welcome to the United States,
Yeah,
brother.
like that's one thing I usually do notice. Like, I've seen, one Audi, I'm seeing GMCs, I'm seeing Fords, I'm seeing Dodges, and the odd, Honda, the odd Toyota, but every second car in Canada is a Hyundai. Like, so
Right.
Yeah, I've been trying not to like spend too much time riding you around on the highway. Like, you're here to visit, you don't drive around. You'd see a lot of Teslas, a lot of EVs.
Right.
You would see it, especially closer to the city. Like, if we had spent more time bombing around, like, I mean, I drive for a living, I see lots of them.
see the reason that people like average people like me sort of aren't all electric cars in Canada. I know we're just on a tangent here, but almost why gas is so expensive in Canada is because there's no car, there's no people living there, so we're all paying this huge amount of tax on gas to pay for the roads.
Right.
So that's where all that money comes from. It just comes from the gas tax. So if gas it was $1.41 a liter when I left, I think about 18 cents of that is a carbon tax, and another like 60 or 70 cents is road tax. It's a lot.
Yep.
But if you drive a Tesla, an electric car or any kind, you pay zero of that.
Yep.
Because, you're just like charging your car at your house. So the rest of us, so I'm like, every time I see one of those cars, I'm paying for you to drive on all the roads.
Yep.
So that's the only thing that really, so electric cars are going to, they're already talking about it. They're basically going to have to put a GPS in every electric car in Canada and start to come up with something like, okay, where are they charging you $4,000 a year extra? Or we're going to charge you by kilometer, like a surcharge. So pretty soon, the government is going to be forced to say, we just can't let anybody drive an electric car for free anymore on the roads without you paying your share. And that's going to be a hard thing for people. All of a sudden, it'll be the same price or more expensive, which it probably is now because of batteries, to have an electric car.
Right.
Well,
Remind me
and-
again what the conversion is between the liter and the U.S. gallon.
That's one I really don't know because it's not 4 liters. 4 liters is a Canadian gallon, but a Canadian gallon is significantly bigger than a U.S. gallon.
I always thought it was like 3.3, but I don't have the facts for that.
Yeah, it's something like that.
So even if we said it was 3, which I know it's more than that, I mean, that's
324 a gallon right now.
Yeah, that would be 4.23 a gallon.
Yep.
If it was only 3%, like 3 times.
Yeah, gas is still one of the things that's quite a bit
Crazy.
cheaper.
Yeah, crazy expensive in Canada. Okay.
So with the EVs, what we've found out is that there's some new legislation going in and to put a tax on registration that they have to pay every year. So your registration for the EV is going to go up. And then they're actually damaging the roads more than a standard car because they weigh more, twice as much.
So the trucks are even worse. Like,
Yep. And
yeah.
and then when it comes to shipping these fucking things across the country, because they have to be trucked, right? They can only put like 4 or 5 on a truck when they could used to fill it up with 9 vehicles as a gas truck.
And yet another front end expense that they don't talk about when they own EVs.
Yep. And those trucks are running diesels, and there's more trucks to haul them around. And oh God, look, and I'm saving the goddamn planet. Fuck.
How are logistics here now? Like, is everything recovered after COVID? Or are you still waiting? Because that's still an issue. I've been waiting, I want to say 9 months for a 100 amp service panel to put in a tiny to pick the generator up to.
Yep.
It's
Like
gotten
10 months,
better.
it's still not in.
It's gotten better, but it's not back to what it was.
Nope, not 100%. Big gear, our little stuff is recovered. Big gear is still, they're talking 58 week, 60 week out on ordering. Yeah.
I wonder how people are competing with. So I noticed, like I told Jay the other day. Now Costco sells electrical wire, like commercial
in
residential
Canada.
wire in Canada now.
They sell Romex up
Like
here.
so I was in Costco the other day, and they sell red, they sell yellow, they sell white, and it's a lot cheaper than at the electrical supply store.
And the color code is slightly different. I learned
I was
from
about
him,
to say,
too.
hopefully
Yeah.
red is orange. It's
Yeah,
number 10,
when
right?
he says red,
Yeah.
it means
Yeah,
orange.
it is 10, yeah, sorry.
12 now here is purple, by the way.
Yeah,
Purple.
purple
Wow.
now, yeah.
I do like that.
You know the colors are there just for the inspectors, right?
Just to make it easy for them to see what's what. I
why
wondered
they
about
did
that.
that,
Yeah, I did wonder. Because I was saying to, Leviton is one of the brands in Canada, whatever, for light fixtures. I don't know if it is here or not, for
Here
receptacles
too.
and fixtures,
It's
whatever.
big here, yeah.
Yep.
So I was actually chiding Jay for not having a fan in his bathroom. It's like,
Yeah.
how come there's no fan in your bathroom? Like, is that a Minneapolis thing, people? I just
No, that's just a J thing.
just a Jay thing. So I said,
It's
I
on
put-
the list, for fuck's sake.
My wife absolutely, except some of the extent of my electrical stuff, I could put in a receptacle or a light or something. I put those timers, in the 30 minutes, 15 or whatever, so we don't leave and get home every day. You left the fan on all day, again. $60 at Home Depot, $17 at Amazon, delivered to my door, like for the exact same Leviton switch package, everything. I think it could be totally different.
You've got to be really careful with, even though they have the same branding, same company, they're built differently
I wondered.
and they have different quality
Right.
because of that, because they're going to put cheaper quality on Amazon to sell more because people are buying more of them
I wondered about that. Like, I wondered what the
on
if
some things.
if they were safe or
How much stuff, just a little side tangent here, how much stuff that you order on Amazon are you getting super quick, like next day, same day? Like,
So it depends really on your area, but even if you don't have Amazon Prime anymore, because the truck drives by my house, like, even in my small subdivision, like 10 times a day, you get it in a day or two.
well, so it's the same as it is here now.
Same as
Okay.
here. I don't understand how you can order. I love Amazon for ordering really obscure things like, a part you can't get for your lawnmower that's 30
Yep.
years old, but it's on Amazon. Like, and you don't have to shop, you call a million places and you just type it in. This company sells it to you. I don't know how that's already they actually built a big distribution center in Halifax too, or whatever. I don't understand how that's in the distribution center in Halifax and it's at your house like tomorrow. Like, how do they know? Like, are that many people buying that obscure part?
So I've looked into that. Okay,
I
so
love their algorithm and their
Right.
data people. Like,
Yeah.
they're on point.
they have so many people working the data centers and tweaking those algorithms when it comes to like purchasing and like quantity and things like that. They know that historically a lot of people in area X, let's say your area, had this type of lawn tractor because that's what the company used to sell at Sears or whatever it was for you. They know the parts that go bad often. They know the average of the person, and they just stock those parts. Like, that's how they do it. It's genius.
Yep.
The fact that this guy started selling books in his garage is
Right.
crazy. Every time you look at Amazon, I'm more and more amazed what they're able to do. Like,
Lived
the-
under a table in his office about this size for 2 years, or in his car.
Right, yeah,
in California, in his office.
Yeah, just to make it happen. Like, it's crazy.
That's
what
how you make
is happening.
$400 billion, folks.
Right, and then give half it away in a shitty divorce. Yeah. Yeah, that would be crazy.
Although
He made
I,
that fucking back in a week, though. That's the problem.
Yeah,
I
he's
do
fine.
say we do try to get back to the cottage I'm building, or the cabin I'm building. We do try to buy local, so there is a local like Home Hardware, which is very similar to your Ace Hardware, like a smaller chain there. We are trying to buy a lot of stuff there. Even if it's $1 more a sheet for this or something like that, because it is nice to have that local place that's 8 minutes down the road that we can go get stuff at. So we are trying to, like, we call them, we give them our opportunity to give our business for the big box stores.
Yeah, I do the
Yeah.
same thing. The local Ace Hardware, I'll go there and buy stuff. I don't want to lose that option. I don't want to be completely handcuffed into using one like monopolist service. I really don't.
We lost one in the town I was at. We lost an Ace Hardware, and then it never came back. And then the other hardware store that was there is now the only one. And he got so busy, he remodeled it, put a nice fascia on it, and then sold it.
Right.
Smart.
He just couldn't handle it anymore.
Got too busy.
And I still try to go there as much as I can, even though now it's a chain store.
Right.
It's
And
part
I
of the
have
local
to
chains.
admit, I mean, it's the small little details of obviously not losing your local like store. I walk into mine and most of the staff are like, "Hey, Canada, what's up? Like, what are you working on today?" Like, they're so small. They get to know people who are in there regularly. I like
wish
it.
I had that.
I like it, man. I love when I walk in and the old guy Scott's like, "Hey, what are you working on today? Like, did you get that plumbing fixed?" Like,
Every time I'm in mine now is 16, 17, 18-year-olds that don't give a shit about anything.
oh, look, so another little side tangent
They
here.
always say the same thing in Canada too. I forget what it is. It's like always like, take it easy. They all say like, take it easy when you leave, or take it easy, take it easy, take it easy. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever store you go to, that's the common 16, 17-year-old phrase.
Yep.
Oh yeah, they're all
take it easy.
it's all kind of the same thing. Like, hey, at least they're socially interacting and trying to work in public. So many kids don't want to do it at all. Like a couple places I go recently, they tell you just the information you need. Right. That's $21.95 today. Do you need a receipt? Would you like a bag? They hardly look you in the eye. It's fucking wild. Like, But then you get some who are great, who are like in there trying. I saw a kid, they were training at the local Ace Hardware here recently, and he was like looking up and he was trying to do a good job. I'm like, hey man, like welcome. Like learn from this guy. He's been in the business a long time, obviously. But it's
Oh, I had another question about apprentices too.
Sure.
Are you legislated by state law to take so many at your company? So, because when I was teaching, every school had to take 20%. Like, so if I had 50 teachers, I had to take 10 student teachers every year because it was legislated. You know, we couldn't refuse to take them. We had to take them.
The only legislation here is that I'm aware of is you can only have, and it varies from company to company, state to state. You can only have so many apprentices under the watchful eye of a journeyman.
2 to 1.
And it's right
And
now
it's
with
on
us
the job site.
Yeah, right now with us it's 2 to 1. Yeah, and how close to them, like physically, you have to be varies.
Skewed.
I mean, I'm showing my ignorance here, but for some, I know it's 4 to 1, but I'm not sure about electrical in Canada. I only know some of the trades.
Oh, some of them, yeah, it varies. It depends on what they negotiate and what the safety standards are.
Right.
With electrical, other trades are dangerous, but mistakes in electrical can really cost lives really quick if somebody doesn't know what they're doing. I think they keep that number real small so that if somebody is working around gear or whatever, like even though they're not supposed to, there's always gear, open gear. I think that's why they're real careful with electrical. They just don't want to have it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But we'll see what happens. So I want to change tack here real quick, big brother. Tell us about the hunting shack. It's some of the photos are going
house.
up. My brother is building what he calls, quote unquote, air quotes, a hunting shack, folks. There's pictures up on Tiny Homes stuff. It's a home.
Which, before we get fucking started, he says to me, "Oh yeah, I'm building a hunting shack. It's about the size of Jason's house. It's a fucking house.
It's big, man. I think the square footage is gonna be bigger than my house. Like for sure, it is.
It's 28 by 40. So
That's pretty big, man. So
it's Canada, you know, like things are just bigger there.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. How's that process been going?
It's going great, but I could tell a story just jot a laugh. So I remember I was talking to the building inspector, and I wanted to be able to get recreational property or recreational cabin zoning, or, you know, for my, because, you know, you pay incredibly less property tax.
Oh, sure.
So I remember she asked me some questions. She says, if you answer yes to any of these questions, it's a house. I'm like, okay. She goes, is it insulated? I'm like, I'm not even going to pass the first one. She's like, I'm just going to burn through them just so you'll know, right? Is it going to have plumbing? I was like, yes. Is it going to have electricity? Yes. You know, is it going to, is it going to be heated? Yes. I'm like, so if you answer yes to any of those, it's a house. So she goes, no, you're a house, Greg.
That's great.
So I was like, so I did try, John. I was like, I did try to, no, it's a cabin. We're just going to, she's like, no.
Okay, so if you want a recreational property there, it has to be a shack.
Right.
Yeah,
it's great, actually.
literally
So this is our first
shed.
time. We've built a few other places in, you know, projects over the years with, you know, a couple of my different friends, but this is our very first one. We're like, okay, we're going to go 100% permit. We're going to be 100% legit. So that brings its own, you know, as you two, that's your life, right?
Yep.
You can't like, oh, we don't need a permit for that job.
Yep.
So this is my first time sort of dealing with that process from start to finish. So, you know, it was the 50 hours of submitting drawings over and over and over. The building inspector was really nice. I only had to submit one engineered drawing, which is my roof trusses, which I always buy because, you know, the last thing I want to do, same as probably here, is be worried like up in the middle of this winter up shoveling snow off a roof because I'm worried it's going to collapse.
Right.
So I'm quite happy for someone else to build my trusses. Everything else I'll do, but I'm like, you know what you're doing. So there's a little bit of a, so, you know, got all those submitted and there, you know, it's always learning phase. We thought we priced out some foundations because we're doing work yourself and it's a hunting cabin or house. You don't want to spend that much money. So we thought, you know, putting it on sonotubes and Bigfoot, you know, concrete piers would be a lot cheaper, you know. Yes, but about like, you know, 300 hours more work. Because, you know, it's sort of, we have 3 sort of lines of, you know, 5 tubes. I think the code is 3 meters apart. So we dug a big trench, you know, then we'll just put a pin in and we'll just fill it back, you know, back in. Of course, we got like, you know, 5 inches of rain the next night. Then we spent a whole day pumping the trench out, you know. So the things you learn. Now we dig one hole, put one in. So we're doing okay. So we're just, we have the floor in. We're going to insulate it next week when I go back. So we're hoping to get, you know, the walls and the ceiling on and get it roof tape before the snow flies.
Was the alternative to the sonotubes and the concrete actually putting in footings or pouring a slab?
So pouring a slab is difficult because in that zone, it's supposed to be undisturbed soil for at least a year before you pour a slab on it. So, you know, we cleared it off way less than a year ago, like, you know, about a week before you put the sonotubes and the concrete piers in. Having done it again, I would do screw piles. Screw piles are about double the price. So I want to say we're about in $5,000 for the, you know, the 15 concrete piers we have in. Screw piles would have about 9,000. A slab or a foundation would have been about 15,000.
Right, but they could just drive the screw piles in, boom, done.
Having to have it all done again, I would have got them to come put the screw piles in because they come with either the tool that self levels for the excavator, or some of them have a bobcat, and they just, you want one here?
Drive it in, yeah.
Here?
Spray paint a square, like an X on the ground, just put it right there.
And then 30 minutes later they're done. And they're about $375 to $500 depending on what you want done.
Okay.
Now you can only have one store using those.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
For whatever that building code is at. But that's the other thing we learned after doing a couple of buildings too, is you get to the point where you don't want to climb stairs anymore. You don't want to be on top of a roof anymore. And the 2-story buildings that we, cabins that people have in the summertime, it's 100 million degrees upstairs and you can't use it. In the wintertime, when the wood stove's on, it's 100 million degrees upstairs and you have all the windows open.
Right.
So we're like, no, one story.
Not to mention, we should point out that the land is significantly different there because it's on an island. So it's basically topsoil, rock.
A peninsula for those fact checkers out there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Peninsula.
It's a peninsula.
Right. Yeah. What did I say?
Not an
Island?
island.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Peninsula. My fault.
So peninsula for those people.
Yeah. Slightly attaches
Like
to
an
the
island
mainland.
surrounded by water, but
Slightly
a very
attaches to the
thin
mainland. Yeah.
isthmus that connects us actually to the mainland.
Enough to a highway.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Look how great he is. It's perfect. Greg is our new foreign correspondent fact checker here. I just like to say it's an island because I like to think we're separated from the rest of Canada.
So good. So it's as you like, it's hard. I'm sure you two feel the same way. It's hard to find time for your own projects because you get just busy doing other stuff, and then it just takes time to coordinate the schedule of you and someone else about having to try to find the time to, okay, we're going to work on 3 days. Like, so I haven't banged a nail down there in like a month, but then as soon as I go back, I'm going to, 3 days next week, 4 days the next week to try to find the time to do it.
Right. And you were hoping for weather type before the snow flies.
I am. And people who aren't contractors kind of found time or don't know anything. My buddy, he's like, oh, we'll have it all ready. Like he was telling people, we'll have it finished by November. Or like we'll have people over. And I'm like, no. I said, think about it. A team of like 6 people works on a regular house for like 6 months every day, for, 10 hours every day. We have like 30 hours on this job. It's going to take us years to do it.
Right.
So now his brother texts back. He's like, Honey Cabin 2027. And the next week it's Honey Cabin 2028.
I like it. That's good. I am looking forward to one day being there for a hunting season. That'll be all right. Especially since it's not a shack as we just went through.
For sure.
What else do you got? I know you've got just some personal questions for my brother, I'm sure.
Can't
Throw them out there. I'm willing to take some heat right now. I'm here. Target. Go ahead. Fire away, buddy.
You asked in that episode when you were up in Nova Scotia, that was my only real kind of digger question.
Okay, fair enough.
But what is it like? And I've never asked you this, but growing up in Nova Scotia, I thought, and it was my ignorance because I'd never fucking looked on the map for Nova Scotia. I didn't give 2 fucking shits about it.
You probably never heard of it before I got here.
Oh, I did, but I didn't care about it. And I'm like, what? Realizing that it's pretty much straight east of us.
It's not
slightly north.
It's not that far north as far as like. What are the lines that go across?
No, it's really not. No,
Yeah.
the latitude.
That
latitude is
yeah.
almost the same.
It's almost the same, yeah.
Yeah.
It's slightly north by like probably 100 miles.
Yeah, you just think in your head because it's Canada, everything is north, but that's not the case. Like, yeah.
Right. So what is it like growing up? Because Nova Scotia is so close to the United States, right? You can drive through Maine.
Yeah. And I went to the University of Maine, so.
Yeah. Okay. So is there big things that separate growing up in Nova Scotia and Canada compared to being here in the U.S.? Is there huge things?
The ocean. No ocean is huge for me.
Yeah, we both say that. So once you live by the ocean, you can't not live by the ocean.
Right. It's a huge loss out of my soul.
You're used to seeing the ocean every day, and you can smell the salt air. When I sit outside here the other day and I can't smell the salt air, my brain is already thinking like, man. So I actually experienced this when I taught in South Korea for a bit, and we lived inland, about 3 hours from the ocean. And about once a month, we'd be jonesing so bad for the ocean, we'd actually go to the beach for the day because we just couldn't take it mentally, not be able to see the water. Whatever it is, whatever that evolutionary thing in our mind is about living close to the water, you don't smell that salt air, you're just like ocean, 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 ocean.
Yeah, just the other day at the time of this recording, 6th of October, I'd been living here 18 years since I emigrated. Right. And still now, even on a beautiful night sitting outside somewhere you're doing, there's this constant like poke in the back of your head all the time, like just doesn't smell right. Don't hear the ocean, can't smell.
Can't hear the waves.
It's even after all these years, it eats at me a little bit. The ocean's a big one. I mean, clearly being a part of my family, I didn't get to see my niece and nephew grow up like I would have liked. Like those things are with anybody, right? But that's the biggest one for me as far as the change goes. Does that answer your question? I know you were talking about growing.
You would have
up.
gotten we get a lot more moderate weather because peninsula surrounded by the ocean and the jet stream just goes right by, and it's big complicated. Basically, the weather in Nova Scotia is almost the hardest to predict in the world. So all over the rest of the world, supposedly, you can predict the weather about accurately out to about 2 weeks out. In Nova Scotia, you can predict the weather about 24 hours in advance. They actually send all their weather models from universities all over the world to Nova Scotia, to the universities, and if they work there, they test them out, then they send them back. So there's people that work for the Canadian Meteorological Service. That's all they do is work with the University of Texas or work with some university in Indiana. And of course, it rains every Saturday and Sunday in Nova Scotia too.
Right, yeah.
Like for all of our lives, for whatever it is, every Saturday and Sunday it rains.
Yeah.
So we get a lot more moderate weather, so we just don't get those big swings of, cold weather. Even in the wintertime, even when we used to get more snow, it could be, I don't know if you get the big swings here. One day last winter, it could be like -10 one day and it's like 17 degrees C the next day.
There was a 50-degree Fahrenheit swing here one day last year. Yeah, you still see some of that, yeah. And it's one of the things that was great about the ocean was, depending on where you were in the province and where the storm was coming from, you had visual advance notice. Like you could be outside doing something, you could look out into the ocean and go, "Oh, storm coming."
Right.
We got an hour to 2 hours to finish this. Like you at least had some visual advance notice. Where here, the storms, because of the humidity and however, the storms can pop up out of nowhere here. Sometimes you see it tracking across a lot, But I mean, you might be out on a nice sunny day and all of a sudden is that thunder?
Yeah.
And then a storm will just pop up.
But all the same stores, all the same stuff. If you came in Nova Scotia, you'd be shocked at the amount of people that are Boston Red Sox fans and Bruins fans. Because that's all that, when we first got Cablevision, when I was I want to say 1974 into 75, the only two stations we got were kind of for Maine. So they would show all the Red Sox games and all the Bruins games. So
funny.
There are a ton of, if you go to Red Sox games, there'll always be someone from Nova Scotia there or a Bruins person. Because there's just a ton of Red Sox, and because that's the games they showed on TV.
Right.
Showed all those games.
And when I was growing up, it was
all my friends are Bruins fans. They're not, they're not Toronto or Montreal fans.
Oh yeah, I'm the black sheep of the group. There's not a lot of me.
Yeah.
And what I noticed growing up was something along the same lines of, we have such a diverse group of people who pick sports and teams from other places because we don't have any.
Oh,
so right, we don't have any. Yeah.
I don't have any.
There is no.
Yeah, there's no affiliation to the hometown team because there's no hometown teams.
Yeah.
So you kind of just can pick who your friends like or you like or whatever.
South Dakota was the same way.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And hurricanes are a big thing too. So since about 2000 now, we started getting category 1s, category 2s. We never got those before.
Right.
But global warming is a whole new thing. So now there's a good chance. Like, knock on wood, I won't make the noise. But this is the first year that we haven't had a major hurricane.
Yeah, it's okay. Now again, knock on wood. Go ahead. Yeah.
This is the first year we haven't had a major hurricane. Every second year in a while. Like we lose power for a week at a time. It does huge damage, costs billions of dollars. So I feel like when I'm watching those things down in
Florida,
Pete Milton, the hurricane Milton now for Florida, I feel for those people. I live that.
Yeah,
right.
They're gonna get pounded.
I remember the first time we got hit with a category 1, just kind of barely a category 2 hurricane 1. I remember my friend and I, outside. It was kind of getting windy, and we're like, this is kind of cool, Then a couple of garbage cans kind of roll by, then a piece of sheet metal off a house, sort of screams by our face, and I'm like, we should go in.
Are you talking about Hurricane Juan?
Hurricane Juan.
Okay, so I can tell you about that. So I was living there still in 2001 with Hurricane Juan, and I don't know if Greg feels the same way, but there were so many years that they'd tell you, oh, get candles, get supplies, it's going to be the worst storm ever, and then it rained for 4 hours. Right. So you get sort of desensitized, yeah, I'll be fine. I got a couple groceries, we'll be good. I was with the girlfriend at the time, just kind of enjoying the day, and realized 2-3 hours before that storm was really going to hit, uh-oh, this is really a thing. My motorcycle at the time was parked between my house and the one next to it. And I'm like, okay, the wind's picking up. It's really screaming. I got to go move that motorcycle inside somewhere. I went downstairs and I touched the storm door, the outside sheet metal door of my house. And the second I touched it, it tore it out of my hand, off the building, and just spun down the street. The next day, we were without power for a week and a half that time. You couldn't get supplies. The only bonus was the next morning I went out after it was done, in the afternoon. My motorcycle was completely covered with leaves, every square inch of it, like somebody had camoed it. But somehow I wiped everything off, started out first try, never even knocked it over. It was the strangest thing. But it was between two buildings. But yeah, that was, Hurricane Juan sucked. Oh my God.
One of the things we really noticed too is there used to be a lot more visitors from the States. They a lot more tourists, like when, people had younger families or whatever, they're like, it would be nothing but U.S. plates like in the summertime with tourists from the United States, but that's really stopped now.
Really?
I don't know where U.S. tourists go anymore if people just don't do those traditional kind of vacations.
We can't afford it.
But
Well, there is something about that too. It's also a bigger hassle to cross the border because back then they could just drive across the border, fly in. Ever since 9/11 and even a little bit before that, the borders all tightened up so much. I think that affected a lot of people who were just like, yeah, it's not worth the hassle. Like,
a lot of Americans, like a lot of houses were owned by people in America, especially in Cape Breton, like where our grandparents are from.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people had a house. Like everybody from New York had a house there. Like every second house was someone from New York.
right.
So that sort of changed a bit.
So
Nice.
you've, even though this is your first time in the Midwest, Greg, you've traveled in the States a bit. Like,
Yeah, I've been to Florida. Yeah, drove to Florida a couple times back and forth. So I've
we
been
were
to
in
Georgia.
Detroit for that NASCAR
that's right,
race
we
when I
went to
first lived
Detroit,
here, right?
yeah.
So,
Michigan.
just off your initial reaction, you've been here just like slightly less than a week. What would you say is the superior part about Canada, and what would you say that you see as the superior part about the States so far? Like, is there something you see where you're like, okay, that's way better, or that's not as good? Because I'm making the comparison still after all these years in my head, like, Canada's got this better, or the States really got it figured out. Like, have you noticed anything?
If I lived here, probably, like, I know healthcare. Like in Canada, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it's all taken care of.
Right.
You have a heart attack. You have something like there's just like the idea of actually having to pay for anything in the hospital is so foreign to me.
Right.
No, that's included. That's free. Like we all pay for that. Yeah. And actually, that's gotten better lately. Now seniors have free dental care. That just started about 6 months ago. So our mother actually filled out for that. And so that's another big thing. Right. And I should say kids up until like 18 or if they're in school get free dental care too. But so and now they're pushing like just for free pharmacare for everyone too. That may be the result of the next election. So that's a big change. I'm sure if I lived here, I would have that worry.
Yeah, what are the wait times though? Still,
that's
like,
the difference.
To see a fucking
brother.
doctor if you got a problem.
So that's very interesting, actually. If you, for example, if you had gone in because if you had been on workman's compensation and gone into and you told the doctor you were missing work, you get your knee fixed almost right away. If I'm a teacher and the knee's not keeping me from going to work, I might have to wait like a year or two. So it really depends on what you do. Like they will still try to adjust the, but there is a shortage of doctors and there definitely are wait times for some things.
Yeah, because that was the biggest thing I saw. Like, yes, I need to get healthcare through my company, and the healthcare program we have is great, but there's no waiting. Right. Like, when I had some stuff in my chest there a few months back, like I walked right in, taken care of. Like when I thought I was having problems with my knee, I had an MRI like 2 days later, and that was only because I couldn't go in the same day. Yeah, like yes, that part of it is different, but the wait times is what everybody says they worry about. It's like it's not good.
And, but so that's just sort of one thing or whatever. But I don't think there's any bad things about there's lots of people who, lots of my friends' parents, even our relatives have a place in Florida.
Right.
They just go there for the winter, like the sort of a normal sort of thing.
Right. The ultra generous gun laws here. Like we were just looking at my pistol the other day. Like you can't buy a pistol anymore, can you?
No.
They took all that away, right? Like
no.
And I'm not judging it one way or the other, right?
Stuff,
yeah.
I would.
Yeah, and you can. Yeah. I'm still a little Canadian that way where I can look at both sides of it. But man, the liberal access to firearms in the States still is wild to me. Like you just as long as you have a permit to purchase, just go buy a gun. Like,
and I guess I'm probably still under the impression that there's like no taxes in the States on anything, but I don't think that's true anymore.
There's still taxes.
Because I heard people talking about taxes, like just out of the garage the other day and stuff.
Taxes.
Yeah, so I'm still under that impression we all are in Canada that everyone here is not paying any taxes on anything. It's like everything's free.
It's certainly less taxed on a lot of stuff, and some things they don't tax at all, right? But it's less. But so like what's sales tax in Halifax now?
It's across Canada. It's 15%.
15%. Okay, and locally here we're like 6.25%.
Well, see, that fucking changes.
And it varies.
That
It always
varies
yeah.
everywhere. I'd say probably 7. Kind of good solid average, 7.5.
And then some things like you always have to pay the 15% every time you sell your car. So if that $50,000 truck gets sold, the first time the government made 15% on it, the next time it gets sold to the next user, they make another 15%. So by the time that truck actually takes to the junkyard, the government might have made $50,000 in tax off that. Because they charge you the 15% every time it gets resold. So there's a lot of things that like really suck. We're like, really?
That's bullshit.
Yeah, like so
multi-taxation on stuff.
But now people in Canada are actually starting to, especially Nova Scotia, are like, okay, it's kind of getting out of control. I know we got good services and good policing, good hospitals and good roads, but I don't know if we can take any more.
Right.
Like we're kind of finally to the point where people are actually starting to say like, whoa, that's too much.
That's good because it does sound like a lot. Like every time
it's a lot. Like, the top income tax bracket is 57% of your income.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
that's quite a bit. Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's funny because you brought up the healthcare thing. It's one of the most negative conversations I have with nearly everybody in the States, and they bring it up because everybody says, "Oh, you get socialized." It's not socialized healthcare. It's universal healthcare. We pay for it through our taxes. Everybody used to think it's free, like it's communism. Like everybody gets the same thing. It's not like that. But even to this day, for some reason, it's a really like negative stereotype that people have in the States about universal healthcare. Like it's a great thing. You just can't afford it in the States because your population is like 10 times.
You can, but that's why cigarettes are $25 a package.
Yeah, right.
Because
exactly.
$20 of it is going to pay for the healthcare of the person who smoked all their life who's in the hospital now.
Right.
So it's
right. Well, and here in the States, the bottle of whiskey, take that one. Every whiskey, 60% of it is tax. 60% of the whatever you purchase for whiskey is taxed automatically.
Yeah, and you were saying, Greg, it used to be a real crazy difference between like booze in the States and Canada. But you said this time it's not so much.
No, not so much. Like prices have really gone up a lot here. Like I really noticed.
You even said that after your trip. You came back and you're like, I went to buy a bottle of whiskey and I just went, holy fuck, no.
Right. Yeah. But now it's getting closer now. And it almost seemed like their prices came down because like my regular bottle of Jameson or whatever, that's what I was going to get there. It was way more like 3 years ago when I went up. Yeah. And this last trip was like, oh yeah, it's not so bad anymore. But also maybe it's just because I love booze and I'm willing to pay whatever it costs to get a buzz on. Like that's also a possibility.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, and the people, like there's just way less people in Canada, which is good and bad. Bad because we don't have enough taxes to pay for anything, but good because, there's no crowds. There's no, there are certainly busy parts of Canada, but there's more traffic here on Monday morning than I'll ever face like at home.
Well, you can fact check this later. But let me know approximately what's the population of Nova Scotia now?
Just over 1 million.
Okay. So just as a comparison, over the 10 days of the state fair here, there's more people that go to the state fair than the entire population of Nova Scotia proper.
Right.
Yep.
It's wild. And that's just
by
one.
a lot.
Yeah. And that was the area we went through for the tailgate. Like, yeah, the population here is crazy.
And the population, in especially Nova Scotia, this is probably the biggest difference, John, hasn't grown. There's the same amount of school-age children in Nova Scotia right now as there was in 1918. So our population has basically been like 1 million since 1918. It's just not a place that...
Oh, no way.
It just doesn't grow.
Just cycles.
It just cycles, yeah. Like,
Like enough people leave.
That's
everybody
the whole
has,
States.
I'm sure it's the same here too, but everyone who moves away from Nova Scotia eventually comes back. So we'll pull you back in eventually. It's just that you go away to work, you do stuff, whatever, and everyone somehow magically ends, they just miss home.
That could be the case. I do miss home. I love my home in the States. I'm a permanent resident here. I am going to eventually get my citizenship and all that, but it's never home. Home's never home. So
Yeah.
So what are some? I'm always wondering what the next upcoming podcast topics are.
we kind of have
It's been a year. Like I haven't heard that episode yet, but I knew it was coming through a year.
Yeah, actually, as the time of this recording, that one isn't even released yet. That'll be next week.
Okay.
That's this week.
That's this week coming.
This week,
okay.
okay.
Right, this week
Yeah,
coming.
look forward to that one.
Oh yeah, that's tomorrow.
And I always do like the shout
Or
outs.
day after tomorrow.
2 days after.
So I mean, we.
Or how do you generate those ideas? Or that's sort of.
I generate most of the ideas as we go along. John's sort of the tech guy. We talked about that in our anniversary special.
Yep.
Coming up, the biggest thing in the next year is going to be we're going to focus on having as many, if not more, guests than what we had in the last year, because those are great episodes for us. We enjoy having people in. We enjoy interviewing people, different perspectives other than just two electricians talking to each other. That's going to be a big thing. And also, I said early that there was about 40 things that we could talk about when it came to construction. Now we're able to kind of push almost every idea that we talk about into the construction lane a little. Like John, a friend of ours, wanted to hear us talk about AI. So when we did that, we could still generate it towards the construction industry a little bit.
Yep.
I'm going to really start thinking outside the box in this next year and just talking about things we're all talking about, even though it might not be construction related, but things that construction workers and building workers would be talking about on a day-to-day basis. Like right now, I'm putting together one that's going to come up soon. I haven't even dropped this on John yet. Somebody asked me to hear about what we think about using universal basic income. Like that's going to be a divisive one, right? Right. Yeah, see, that's why I hadn't brought it up yet. Those are the sort of things we're looking at. Like we need to keep our focus on this is a trades podcast, but we also need to look at people talk about things a lot that aren't trades related, and we need to start getting into that more. So
Because that's the thing for me. Like I spent my whole life. I used to say this all the time. Like at a school, everyone has a university degree. Mm-hmm. So it's a certain culture. Like every single person's been successful going to school.
Right.
So, I was always trying to champion, that kid who wasn't successful at school. What are we going to do for them? Like, how are we going to get them in a trade school, in an apprentice or something like that? We don't sort of have all the answers.
Right.
But I appreciate the thing that I like about this podcast is I get to hear like people that are just kind of everyday folks, like, you know, doing the jobs that, you know, I'm interested in doing, because I'm kind of that person now. Like, I'm retired. I'm the person like who's trying to be a contractor, who's, you know, I have a kind of a new friend group that I'm out, like, you know, hunting and four-wheeling and all that stuff, and people, you know, are electricians and carpenters, or, you know, doing HVAC or that kind of stuff. So it's nice to hear from people. That's why I enjoyed, you know, just the visit here or whatever. It's nice to hear how people feel that aren't, you know, making, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, all that stuff, but the people that are really paying the taxes, that are doing the work, that are building the buildings, you know, that are keeping the grocery stores going, that are, like, you know, keeping all the infrastructure going.
Right.
Because it is true. If it isn't for those people, you know, there's no economy.
Right.
That's a huge thing. Like, people, you know, need to.
Right. That's why we picked our motto. Your work keeps the world working. It really does. You know, like we've talked about before, but I mean, if all the tradespeople and all the maintenance people and everything, if we just all like put our hands in our pockets and went, nah, we're off for a week. How much stuff is gone in a week? How much stuff doesn't work in 2? Like, in a month, most businesses are in a real bad way.
Yep.
So, yeah, focusing on the importance of what we're all doing out there to keep everything going is huge, and getting more people into the trades. Like, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I know you listen because you're my brother, but we have people who aren't related that listen. They say a lot of the same things, where it's like, oh yeah, like, I have to do this stuff on my own now, and it's nice to hear people talk about, well, this is what it's like to do it every day, and now I'm just doing a small home project, and I can think, oh, like, what if I had to do this every single day? Like, I talk to people like that all the time now, where they're just like, oh, okay, well, it's nice to hear a perspective of people who do it for a living as a comparison.
Right.
Like, as a frame of
it might be hard
reference,
for both of you to talk about your specific jobs because you're still working and stuff, but it is nice when the guests talk about, you know, just more details about. That would be my only feedback.
Right.
More details about the job that they're doing.
Yes.
You know, I think like when Doug, that's why I enjoyed meeting Doug.
Yep.
Yeah, because I actually, you know, he's on one of the podcasts. He was talking about some of the renovation jobs he was doing. And that's what I like hearing. Like, hey, you know, man, I tore that cabinet out and it was all rotted, and I had to tear the whole back of the wall and to do this and this and this and this, you know. So I bid them this much money in the job, but it actually ended up costing me this much more because I couldn't see that. Like, that's the kind of stuff I like hearing about, you know, the ins and outs of sort of how particular jobs go, or the details.
See, I like the feedback, because that is why we're kind of focused on having more guests if we can. Like, and it shouldn't be too hard, right?
Because Doug, here's an example. He actually said, "Oh, I saved this old fireplace like from 10 years ago that I pulled out of a job, and nobody wanted it. And I'm finally going to put it into my sister's, and it was set in the back of my." Because I don't know if you know this, John, but Mackinnons are hoarders. So I don't know if Jay's inherited that gene or not. But
fortunately not.
I don't think, and I'm not either. Yeah. Even though my wife would say different. But, you know, there's all our aunts and uncles have, you know, buildings of like things from like 30 years ago they saved because they were going to use it sometime. Right. But, you know, it'll be still there 100 years from now.
Well, you were saying the other day about
Doug was
our
saying
uncle
that, I was like laughing, going, I was like, what are those old mirrors over there? And what's that? Like, you know, are you a hoarder, Doug? Like, are you like...
Yeah, I'm lucky. I did not inherit that gene. I will hold on to a couple of things with some intent to using it, but I don't have a building that I have all that stuff set into. Like, you were telling a story about one of our uncles the other day who didn't know he had a motorcycle in the back. Yeah. Didn't know he had a motorcycle.
We were looking for something. I'm like,
what the hell?
Uncle Gary, my Jay looks like Uncle Gary. I said, you know, you have a motorcycle back here, you know, didn't you just buy one? He's like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that back here.
Oh shit.
So I'm definitely not like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no.
But there's too much lumber in front of it to get it out. Anyway, it would have been like, you know, weeks worth of lumber piled in front of it to get it out. So.
I love it.
I hang on to shit more than I probably should.
Yeah.
Well, my dad used to say, you know, like, if you grew up without a hardware store, you straighten every nail you take out of a building, because he would drive me crazy, the straightening every nail. You know, it's funny, in my business partner now, Nigel's dad, he does the same thing. There's a whole like bucket of straightened nails, like in the job trailer we have. And I'm just
varying
like,
sizes, varying gauge.
Like, oh my God. Like, you know, some of them look like, you know, they've been under the Titanic. They're all encrusted with, you know, rust. And I'm just like, really? It's another, you know.
Well, it's the older generation. Make do with what you got, right?
Anyway, I love the podcast. Sure. You know, I'll do anything I can to kind of get the word out more, because it's pretty enjoyable.
Well, thank you, sir. Man. Thank you. And we appreciate the feedback too. I'm glad you're able to come on again. Before we finish up, John, is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you want to ask, buddy?
No, I just want to say thank you. It was good to actually meet you on Friday and hang out and have a couple of cocktails with you and talk to you outside of the podcast realm, because we're pretty focused here. I got to know you and get to know him a little bit better, even though
it kind of threw me off, because obviously you guys hadn't met, but I spent so much time with you. I spent so much time with my brother. I'm like, oh, that's right. He listens to him all the time, but he's never actually met him.
Right.
So yeah, that was definitely something.
Yeah, same for me too. Like great
Yeah.
to put the name of the face, because you just or see the pictures and all that kind of stuff. So
For sure. Well, I want to say thank you too, because this is the second time you come on for us, and we really appreciate it, Greg. Any new insight is always fun, and I know it seems a little self-serving to have my brother on, but what the guys at Tiny Homes Atlantic doing is really interesting. If you're not following them on Instagram, check them out immediately.
yeah, I would say I was shocked about how many people asked me about it this weekend.
Oh, perfect.
Because
Okay, good.
the longer you're in something, I did notice that too. All of a sudden now, like my cousin who lives in New York, the word's out. He was texting me this week. Hey, I heard you know about tiny homes. Can you answer all these questions? So I noticed that's, a thing now too, where everyone is, wants my free advice. I guess I have to figure out how to monetize that.
That's what, yeah,
Like the
for sure.
podcast. Like-
Yeah, look, he's got all terminology down. You're halfway there.
I will help you, but it's going to cost you this much.
Right, yeah, you're halfway there. Well, thank you again for coming in, the Eastside Job Trailer today. We really do appreciate it. As always, people, please check out the website. Check out that buy us a beer widget that pops up automatically there, especially if you're on mobile. And if you do want to get a hold of us, obviously you can DM us or email us on any of the sites. And of course, 507-607-ISAW. If you want to leave us a message or send us a message there, it can be voice or text. We're always happy to get back to people. And other than that, my friend, what do you think?
I wanted to take a quick minute and let everybody know that we do have a new calendar feature.
Yeah.
On our website, we have, if you want to be a guest, you can actually get a hold of us. Go to our website at theisawpodcast.com. You'll find a link right at the top of the page that says want to be a guest. There's a form to fill out. We'll get emailed. We'll have a conversation, pre-interview. We'll get you on Zoom, and then we'll go from there. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I appreciate it. Well, from the Job Trailer, thanks again, everybody who listened this week. Please be safe out there. Remember, I know I said it earlier, but your work keeps the world working. And Greg, cheers, buddy. Thank you so much for being here, your first trip to the Midwest.
Cheers, good sir.
And I'm sure it's not the last time we'll have you on. Talk to y'all next week, folks.
Cilantro.